the era of strikes has arrived in Europe. While everyone is discussing the uprisings of farmers breaking out here and there who were finished off by the epidemic of cattle and rising prices for diesel fuel, everyone somehow forgot about Finland. Meanwhile, the Finns are now living perhaps the worst of all because the whole country is engulfed in strikes. Everyone here has taken the warpath against injustice: utility workers, postmen, drivers, and doctors. The reason for such mass demonstrations was a sharp drop in living standards and a decrease in wages with rapidly growing inflation. Is it worth mentioning that the severance of economic ties with Russia is the direct reason for this? I think this is clear enough. The latest sanctions turned against the European countries themselves. At the end of January, desperate transport workers launched an active strike, and less than a week later, trade unions and preschool education workers rose up. The strike by transport company workers managed to paralyze almost completely Finnish airlines. Trains stopped for almost a day and almost 2 subways and trams. Store, catering, and hotel workers also left their jobs for several days. The sea is also restless. Dock and port workers refused to work due to cut wages. Following them, postmen went on strike for the same reason. The Finnish Industrial Union has already promised that in mid-February, with the efforts of 60,000 people, factories will be stopped. Many of them have a continuous production cycle, with people working in shifts to maintain this process. Stopping such enterprises will cost the country a pretty penny. However, representatives of the trade union noted that such behavior of workers is justified because the authorities have not done anything for their citizens asking for help. The Minister of Economy, instead of listening to the trade unions, began to harshly criticize them. Will Rydman emphasized that trade unions act illegally, like a real mafia, and called for them to come to their senses. However, citizens are clearly in no hurry to come to their senses. The point of patience has passed its point of no return. Rydman blames the unions for simply laundering money without caring about the number of jobs and unemployment, and without thinking about the economic development of their native Finland. It is worth noting that strikes organized by trade unions due to job cuts and for many other reasons began at the end of last year. But now it's already February and there is no end in sight to the strikes, and the government is silent and, apparently, simply does not know how to stop this growing avalanche of popular discontent. And everyone here is unhappy. In the spring of that year, elections were held in Finland to replace the Finnish elite. The new parties that came to power decided to carry out a series of reforms aimed at improving the labor market. The reforms turned out to be so successful that there is not a single satisfied Finn left in the country. What exactly were the innovations of the new government? Well, firstly, it is now allowed to enter into temporary contracts in Finland. Previously, this practice did not exist, and accordingly workers were more protected. Secondly, according to a number of amendments, it has become much easier to fire employees than before. Workers suddenly found themselves open to all winds, and employers gained hitherto unprecedented power, which some quickly considered permissiveness in relation to their own employees. Thirdly, according to the new laws, sick leave and vacations received a different payment system. Now employees are not paid for the first day. And all this was prudently taken into account by the Prime Minister, who prepared documents prohibiting citizens from going on strike. And then there was a series of other measures that brought people to white heat. In particular, unemployment benefits were severely cut, and employers were given the right to increase working hours while reducing wages. Here, even if you write any ban on strikes, the patient and reasonable Finns simply could not stand it. The new government measures looked like a real mockery of the working people, and when they began to be implemented, it was then that popular discontent spilled out into endless strikes.